get zapped by high power costs. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of EV Charging Minute, your place to find all kinds of best practices, knowledge, tips, understanding, and general good instructions on EV charging in the commercial market, commercial real estate market. I'm Tony Booth, your host and the founder of Stay in Charge, bringing you this show every week, trying to help you learn more about EV charging. This week, I want to talk about something that often is never mentioned by people and overlooked, and it can be a big mistake. Okay, so the main thing to think about, like what I really want to get into here, is understanding that putting EV chargers at commercial locations can have a huge impact on your electric bills, and not just the DC fast chargers. Right? In this, I'm talking more about the level 2 chargers. Obviously, if you have DC fast chargers, we already know we probably brought new service in. We have a whole program with the power company. We're doing okay there. We're managing all that. We're doing enough power costs. But what we see happening a lot is people not realizing some things that can impact your electric bill with level 2 charging. Because you just think about it like, oh, well, what's the big deal? It's like putting in a dryer or an oven, right? It's a 50 amp or 60 amp breaker, and it's a electrical appliance. What's the big deal? Well, there is some big deals, some things to pay attention to. At first it sounds real simple, right? We're just moving power from the grid to the car. So we put it through the meter, we measure how much power, and we get charged for it. We just charge the driver for it. Well, there's other things. So we want to be careful. And so I wanted to, talk about that a little bit today, share some ideas on it and some things like that. So when we look at power costs and how it is impacted in a situation like this, what we want to pay, there's really 3 core areas that we want to, pay attention to. The first one's pretty simple, but obviously people don't always pay attention. The first one's pretty simple, and that's just what is your true per kilowatt hour price, right? Because most of us are setting these chargers up and we're going to charge 35, 45, 50 cents, 40 cents, 20 cents, so much per kilowatt for someone to use that charger, right? So we're kind of, the idea is, oh, we pay 12 cents a kilowatt hour. If I charge 36 cents a kilowatt hour, I'm making decent money here, right? So it shouldn't be a big problem. And that's where it should be. But what we have to make sure of in this first thing I want to talk about is make sure you're calculating the right bare cost. Because when you look at any electric bill now, you'll see it's got a power generation cost. It may have a distribution cost. It may have a hot weather cost. It may have some storm rehabilitation makeup cost. Like, you can see a whole list of things in there. So we've seen people make the mistake of just going, oh, I pay 10 cents a kilowatt hour, not look at the other things that are attached to that bill. And so they end up, oh, okay, setting their rates based on something, and then to find out later they're actually more about 14 or 15 cents per kilowatt hour. So we want to make sure we're kind of paying attention to that side of it. So make sure you get that electric bill out, take that total amount, and somewhere on that bill it's going to tell you how many kilowatt hours you burn through in a month, and get that real cost so that you know what it is and you're paying attention to it. And again, that one's pretty simple, right? That's not bad. Now, these other 2 things that we're going to talk about actually can impact back against that number, because if you're on a demand meter or you have varying rates, one month it may calculate out that your cost is 12 cents a kilowatt hour, but the next month it might go up to 14 cents because of demand charges. So looking through that whole thing can get a little bit more complicated. So we want to make sure we're paying attention to that. So the next 2 things, we're going into number 2 here, and that's variable rates that you may pay, or sometimes they call them, supplemental charges or assessments for excess heat, whatever the thing is. But A lot of utility companies will run rates variable by the time of day or time of use, they call them TOU, or and then they will do variable based on the season. So some places will have higher rates in the summertime because of increased loaded air conditioning and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to all that and making the adjustments. So every month, I mean, like, so what we typically do with a customer, and this is what everybody that's doing EV charging should do, is get a year's worth of bills out and kind of go through them and see if they're consistent, see what changes, see what doesn't, see what's actually happening with your bill. If your basic rates are staying the same during the daytime and during the season, then you don't have anything to worry about here. But if you get looking and you see where you're paying different rates per kilowatt hour, a lot of times you'll see a peak demand, off peak, things like that. And there'll be different rates. And a lot of electric companies in an effort to try to promote using electricity at different times, they will run, off peak rates at night. So we want to make sure we're looking at that and then making sure that we're paying attention to that on the charging side, whether that's adjusting the price as we need to, or at least knowing that can happen. Some properties we have, they like to sell the power around 40 to 45 cents a kilowatt hour, but in the summertime, in the middle of the afternoon, their power bill can get up to 40 to 50 cents per kilowatt hour. So that, customers like that, we have to change the rate during the day or do something, or else they're basically giving away free power at that time. And we don't want to be doing that. We want to capture this. It's only fair. So we want to make sure you're paying attention to all that. Look at your bills, look thoroughly, see what's going on with them, and make sure you're adjusting or capturing that where you can. Just like the power companies run these programs to promote us to do things at night, to do things in the morning, to turn our air conditioner down a little bit when it's a peak demand time. Okay. Just like they do all that stuff, we want to try to pass that same thing on to the drivers and encourage them to do the right, to match those things. So if you have a hotel property, for instance, and from 2 to 6 is your peak demand time and you're paying a higher rate, we'll pass that on to the driver, because there's no reason why they can't, even if they're there in the middle of the day, can't come out and plug in after 6 o'clock when that power cost has gone back down. That's the same for any commercial property. Everybody can run into this when you're on a commercial meter. So make sure we're doing all that to match it. Now, the next piece I want to jump into, this one gets a little bit complicated. I'll be honest, it took me a little while. About 3 years ago, I got looking into this, because prior to this, I hadn't done much when it came to power bills, other than knowing, my company had corporate electric rates with demand charges, but they were what they were. But that's what I want to talk about, is demand charges. So a demand charge, this is a utility rate plan that they not only use how much power you consume to calculate your monthly bill, they also throughout the month track, and they will, based on your highest peak demand during the month, assess you a fee based on that. Typically, when the way these programs work, they're actually, if you were to look at your bill and calculate this all and look at their rate structures, many times it's a better rate plan overall for your business, just because that's what they try to do. It's again designed to try to get you to do things at the right time and kind of control that peak demand some. But typically what will happen, you'll see the per kilowatt hour is a little cheaper than the standard kind of non-variable rate part. So you'll pay a little bit cheaper on the per kilowatt hour, but then there is a flat fee every month added to your bill that's based on your peak demand throughout the month. And so, that can vary from pennies per kilowatt, or it can go up to as much as $5 or more, right? Like, who knows what that number actually is, but the way that happens is, let's say you use 500 kilowatts throughout the month, and at the 7 cents, that's $35 for your bill. But then they have a $5 demand charge assessment. And during that time, your peak demand caused a certain, value. You hit 80 kilowatts or 90 kilowatts, and all of a sudden now you have another add-on to that bill, right? So there's a lump sum payment on that bill. So in that instance, right, you could have easily, just on an EV charger, for instance, right? Like if I take that, let's say your demand fee is $5 per kilowatt. So a single charger running is 11 kilowatts. So you got a $55 bill added to a $55 charge added to your monthly bill because of that EV charger, because it happened to be in use at the exact time that the rest of your building hit its peak load. So we got to be careful about that, right? Because now you just added $55. So when you look at that, now that bill for that particular, for that 7 cents, your whole thing, it's more than you collected from the driver, right? You figure $55. We didn't even get that much from that one driver. Spread that over all 20 or 30 drivers that came in through the month. That's not bad. Like, it's not a huge thing, but it's still something that we're not catching. So make sure that you look at your bill and start to understand demand charges, because they will add cost. Why we want to pay attention to that is twofold, right? Because this goes back to capturing the right rate to charge your guests and your tenants and your people that are using your charger, so you make sure you're collecting the right amount of money. Okay, that's number one. But then we also want to see how we can try to impact the usage of our chargers, try to build the right habits, maybe even charge for that time. You can go through your year's worth of bills, and you can, if you have demand meters, you're going to see every month when you hit your peak demand, and it'll normally have a time. And for most properties, it is going to be sometime mid-afternoon, early evening. So you can kind of see that and say, okay, we know that we hit peak demand in the building between 1 and 5 o'clock. So let me go change my charging fee structure to add a $2 charge or a $3 access charge in that window of time. So that way, at least if I am bumping up my monthly bill because of a demand charge, I'm collecting money along the way. Okay, because you'd never know when that peak demand is going to happen. We do know by looking historically, it's normally going to occur in the afternoon, but we don't know what day. Is it Monday? Is it next Friday? There's a day in the given month that you hit your peak demand. Could be dryers running and things like that. Who knows what's going on in your property at that given time? But if a charger is adding to that, it's adding that cost. So we want to make sure that we can do the things properly, set the rate structures, set the programs, so that we're helping to work that stuff through and promote the right use of the chargers when we're using them, and collect the right rates for them. Because we absolutely have seen customers come to us and say, our bill is this, we only billed this much, right? Like, we had a customer come to us like, we billed $300. We got a $300 charge on our electric bill, but we've only charged our guests $250 for the month. What's going on here? Well, they had demand charges and things like that they hadn't calculated in their initial thing. So they were selling their power too cheap. So with them, we said, look, we got to put a program in. We got to shut these things off in the middle of the afternoon, because that's when you got your dryers running, you got everything going on. And then let's put a fee on that. Let's discourage people from charging during that time, so that that's not a draw on your property when you hit your peak demand next month. So we're able to do that. It actually really wasn't, as much it contributed to the EV charging, but there was a little there. That particular month it did hit. So it's just something to be careful of, and we can work around it. So make sure you take a look at those power bills. Make sure you understand your demand charges and things like that, because the last thing you want to do is have these things out there only to find out 6 months from now or a year from now that you're not even making any money because the power's costing you more than you're collecting from the drivers. That's all for today, folks. I hope you learned something new about EV charging. And again, as always, reach out anytime to us here. We're glad to help you discuss anything like that, discuss anything like this. In fact, you'll pretty much find easy access to us. You can send us an email at sales@stayincharge.com, or you can always look me up on LinkedIn. If you find me on LinkedIn, you'll see even in my bio, I've got a link to a calendar link so you can book a time with me anytime. I'm always available to speak with people and discuss commercial EV charging. That's it. We'll see you next time.